meeting notes from last week, we got a demo of dark mode, right?
Yes.
Did we get a demo of Cypress?
Not in this meeting. We discussed it Thursday.
We triaged it. Yes, we talked about it. So okay, so we might be able to do that. And did we talk about SQL? I don't think so. I said there were updates on that.
I don't think we had time.
We have time for SQL, that's okay. 11/10, 2020 demos. I just keep it in case we have too much time, but we will have time. It's good. Oh, but we won't have time today. I'm sorry, Jean-Philippe.
It's all good.
Because, I mean, we have the team with the demos of the demos, like with S. And big D's, like where is that? Something like that, right? Wants to talk? He will say yes or no, no demos.
Yeah, we can do big D demos.
Okay. So, sorry SQL, sorry Cypress, more important things are to be demoed today. We'll see. Well, doesn't mean we won't do that, but no. So let's see status topics. Topics. Yes, I think there was something I wanted to talk about. I will share a link while I think about it. I liked it. Usually like it, but this one I liked it better. This one I liked it. I retweeted it with the main account. So this is a video from William about internationalization, localization, so content localization, culture picker, culture layers, and honestly, I learned something. And I think, I'm not sure if I helped writing it and I knew it would work this way, or if it's just a happy accident that it works this way. I will talk about it later. Because I don't think we should show it this way like it is done in the video, but at the same time, it's interesting that we can do it. I'll show later. So and the URL, can I share the URL? That's weird. Can I share the URL directly here? I just the URL copy. Why is it pasting? Ctrl-Shift-E. Why is it pasting the title of the thing? It's replacing it. Oh, that's why. Okay. So that's what you want. In case you can see the recording and you want to copy paste it. Let's see. So this I wanted to do is go on fork and see the updates on Orchard 1 and nothing on Orchard 1. Some PR that I talked about, but nothing has been merged. Aaron is quite positive on Orchard 1, also on Orchard Core questions. So that's it. Orchard Core. Orchard Core. Oh, it was mentioned earlier because I saw the PR, proved it. This is everything that happened today. Oh boy, oh, it's getting ready for the demos. That's good. So 10 minus 7 equals 3. 3. What time was this on my time? Doesn't show anymore. Here. 112. This one. Okay. We saw that. Then, when filtered by content type, only show taxonomy from that type. That seems to make sense. I think it was an old PR. China is an allow media with and height values without a token. So this is the big change. No, or is it just documentation? Without, oh no, okay. You merged the token thing, but now you're also allowing things to not have tokens. if they don't have tokens, that's fine. Still like the old stuff.
Yeah, so I actually wrote it that way in the docs, and then never wrote it in the code. So the docs were right and the code was wrong. But
Okay.
yeah, it still allows standard setting of width and height values without a token.
Good. Good. Then this is. Oh, I should not. I was filtering dev before that. Not mandatory localization set. Okay, so GraphQL. Is it? Looks like. I cried content item recursions to 20. So there is a new behavior that you can extract full text from content items, which can be recursive if you have a custom template. And this is just a safety net in case there is an infinite recursion that someone will have written by mistake, and then it will detect the infinite recursion by blocking the recursivity to 20. So don't encode ShapeStringify. There was a recent regression due to an inner change to this filter that will double encode titles. So this filter ShapeStringify should not encode the results. Make text pipe T work in Autoroute Pattern. This is I issue multiple PRs to fix this thing. And the goal was to define the correct culture for the current code that is evaluating the Autoroute liquid template. Control, in case you want Autoroutes to be, oh, that's a nice, that's so many discussions. So, okay. Topics. And what was I talking about? Dynamic localization. So just to take into notes that I will talk about it again. So here, the autoroute is a string that is stored in database. It's a setting, but you might want autoroutes to be different per current culture for the current content item. Okay, because maybe you use a word in the route that you might want to translate for the same content item, which is in another language. And this is actually what Jasmine is doing here. Like, let's say you want to translate tractor to tracteur in French in your URLs, because you have a website that renders tractors. Okay, that's what Jasmine does also. And so here the idea is that he's using text like tractor by T to translate it using a PO file. But the issue with that system is that and mostly I always said that we should not use that to translate stuff that is in database because it's dynamic localization. We should only use it for static text like in views, the pipe T. So in templates or views. So that's the idea. But we don't have dynamic localization for now, so it has to use that. Another way would be to use the local shortcodes that don't exist as filters that Traffic made recently. But yeah, because it's a setting, which means it has to be static. It won't change per culture. So you need to have a single string that will represent everything. That's the issue. But we don't have a filter, and I assume I didn't want a filter for that because I said the same thing. We should not provide a liquid filter because I don't want that to contain multiple languages. Did I say that? I said it should just be for content. If you are in a content and right, Jean-Philippe, did I say that?
I think so, yes.
I'm not sure I'm right, but that's what I think today. So until proven wrong, I still think that, and nobody has tried even to convince me. So they just follow my advice there. And but if we had dynamic localization, we would just mark this autoroute setting to be localized and localizable. And then we would be able to provide, even in the same UI with a custom picker, dynamic localized string picker, to provide different values of the autoroute pattern for each culture. I assume we did that in Autoroute 1. This is how we did that, actually. We could specify a different pattern for each culture, but it was not a feature, a site-wide feature. It was just in the autoroute setting, we said we need to be able to define it by culture, and that was fixing the issue. What I want to do is a solution that will work for all the things that we know that have to be localized and are not content and are dynamic strings. And that will solve this also, and everywhere else. So we should not try to do a feature that it will be the same amount of work to finalize dynamic localization. Actually. And I'm also very responsible for not making progress on that, because I kind of blocked Isham from making progress on that due to feedback that is missing. Okay, so just a topic on that in case people are interested. Control markdown options via app settings. So today you can do that. You can define the markdown pipeline options from code. And this PR provides a way to enable, disable plugins for the markdown module. So for the markdown rendering pipeline from settings. I like the fact that we provide some stuff for all the modules there. Maybe what would be even better would be that this hard to have a link also to the documentation where we can see more explanation of that and what we can put. Like here we have documentation with all the values we can put, like no HTML advanced. So I assume we'll find somewhere no HTML advanced. No, can we? Advanced, and where is no HTML? Here. Maybe that would be great when you open that to be able to know where online we can find it. Very interesting. And here is the code to load it. Okay, very good job. I like it. I like the picture. Refactor mail attachments. You didn't like the code? Is it just about refactoring? Oh, I said, okay, thank you. It's not that you didn't like the code. I didn't like it. I assume you wanted to fix it. So now it's a list instead of an enumerable, and there is a default value, so it can't be there. And you can just add stuff, and you don't have a set anymore. Perfect. And here is just reacting to the new contract. So you don't have to test funnel, and you can add directly to the attachments. Okay, thank you. isInRole layer rule, super important. I mean, I think that was one of the core rules we had in Autoroute 1. So if you're in a specific, we had anonymous authenticated, we didn't have the role. So yeah, because you might want for authenticated users of specific role to be able to display custom widgets, in pages. So that makes sense. Good job. Steven, super active. Moving scoped cache of body aspect. That was causing issues, and we talked at some point a few months ago that this cache was unnecessary, so the cache has been removed. Caching is hard, so don't do it unless your name Chantieri, because that license fixing. Thank you. Cypress functional test has been merged. So now all the functional tests use Cypress. And yeah, hopefully we'll get the demo. The idea is that might not be faster, but however we expect it to be faster, but it's easier to write a functional test. We had lots of issues with asynchronous support from Jest, so now with Cypress it's much easier, and there is a lot of tooling also to build functional tests from UI. And what is nice also is that when you read something like that, you know exactly what it's supposed to do. Like go in the slash page, you know, and then check for that content in that selector. Beautiful, right? I want better tests. These are commands. Okay. So this is, so Jean-Philippe also made some utilities for Autoroute. So sometimes in the test, so let me find a good test. The generator with me, test, tenants. Cypress command add login. So login command. Visit tenant setup page, and you can see what it does. So you can invoke these functions, aka commands, directly in the test. These are Autoroute specific ones, like setting up a site and things like this. But if we don't need it, if they are not like big tasks like this, I prefer to see a visit to be obvious to see what it does. Okay. So where is the test here? I can see here. Thank you. Beautiful. SAS setup. So these helper functions also sometimes take like structures like this. So you just copy paste it. So SAS setup, the name, the recipe, and then the name of the test. This is what is displayed when it works. Visit the home page, set up with the SAS site structure here, logging using the SAS site here. And how, question then, when you call site setup with SAS site, it will assign a username password to this object?
No, actually, that login doesn't even need the SAS to be passed because it's just for tenants. It's the login will use the prefix. Okay. Your credentials are in the Cypress .json.
I see. It's a static thing that is used differently. Interesting. That yeah. That okay. Set page size.
So that's just a helper to set the page size to 100. We didn't need to do it here, but it's because when you want to visit a tenant, and if you have too many tenants, it won't click on it because it doesn't support paging. Anyway, that's not required for our test.
Okay. I would have expected something like check that there is a message on the homepage or that it shows something somewhere, because here you know if it worked. And
well, if the login works, it means the site is up.
How do you know that this test is successful? What do you check?
It checks. It checks. Oh, we lost your screen.
Again?
Oh, it's back.
Okay. No, I don't see any check here. I see logins. Maybe it's doing stuff internally, but I don't know what it's checking. So how do you know it works? Like I would have expected, like, let me take this one, for instance. Generate tenant info, new tenant, okay. Visit, get, should. You see, that's okay.
Yeah, I didn't do it for the SAS setup.
Okay. Just saying that if there is a test, there should be a check.
Yeah.
Obvious one. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Lots of work and long, very old one. Less code also to run the test. So I assume this is also what you need to do on your local machine to run functional tests. You just do npm run test and it will work. That's something to try.
Yep.
Autoroute pattern localization. Second wave of changes for that. There might be more after. Add functional test to solution file. Okay. New version of material. new version of Jint, which you reverted after, probably.
And that one's the right one.
This is a new.
Yeah.
And that
after
works
you
or not?
fix. Yeah, it works. I didn't have any issues.
But at first you said it wasn't working anymore. It was still not working, but
yeah, we reverted last week, and this is the after you fixed the Jint.
And now it's better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now it actually
I don't know
does.
why, but I thought it was still not working for you. Okay, good. Introduce culture scope. So this is also to help the changes from Jasmer about the translation route. This is a new class that you can use if you want to locally set the current culture on the current threads, current UI thread, and current UI culture and current culture on the current thread. Like when you want to sell to localize your route. What it does, it sets whatever culture you set it to, and then once it's done, it's disposed, it will restore the previous culture. Fix typos in test, iString localizer context, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Implement user ID, huge PR, very important. From Dean, super important. So very big change in a way that all the user accounts, all the user profiles that you have locally now have a new property called user ID, which is unique, something like this. We used to use a name, the username, as the way to identify a user, okay? But now we decided to use a unique ID such that you can't guess user IDs or you can't recover another set of permissions by mistake or ownership because an account has been deleted and someone created a new account with the old name, and somehow the logical references are still kept based on this name, and then you will inherit some things from that. So to prevent that, we are using now a user ID. So if you take the latest version of dev and just run your code, there will be a migration that will be executed that will assign a new user ID to every user account, okay? And well, no, it's not right. Every new user ID, every new user will have that user ID, but every existing user will keep their username as a user ID. So the value will be copied, right, Dean? And this way is you won't have any change to your content. It will still work the same. And be careful that your user ID equals a string like this, which is safe because the next time someone will create a new user, they can't impersonate anyone else, like recovering an old account, because it will be a newly generated unique identifier. It can't match something like that, so it's still safe. And it's safer for the future. There was no effective issue with the previous definition, but it's just that it's safer for everything. Peace of mind. And yes, people could just create new accounts with old names, so that's technically good. So the migration should be very simple. Fixie, but if you see anything related to users, please report it. There was an issue yesterday that was reported by Steven. And Sean. So this issue, fixing concurrency issue, there is a bug in SQL that will not increment correctly the version internally, and then there is a mismatch between the version that checks and then it creates a concurrency issue when there is no concurrency issue. We'll see later, but this is a mitigation. Drop TieredCompilation flag. So this flag here is not necessary. We added it like in 2.2 of .NET. I mean, we were using the flag before the versions of 2.2 because it was faster, but now it's a default value for since 2.2, so we don't need to set it in the project. A new material version. So every day they ship a new one. It's crazy. Don't join when getting users, so fixing a join. Okay, you don't need the index when you just want the users. Oh, something interesting here. And it's related to the thing I want to talk about here, SQL. When we do some queries like this, I remember while trying to fix an issue. When we do that, the SQL will contain a predicate on the class type. So when we do session query a class, the query will be select star from document where type equals user. Okay, so this is how it's getting the only the users, because it's just filtering on a field, a column in the database that contains the type of the document that it is. Okay, so user. If you do something like this, it will also do that. It will do a join with user index and still filter on the type. Okay. But if you know that user index only contains indices of something that is of the class user, it's necessary to also filter by type, because it might do, I don't know, a check for every element that you are loading. It might slow it down. And it's actually super slow for SQLite in some cases, I discovered. So if you do something like that, there is an argument you can pass that is called filter type. And now it's documented. And if you put it to false, it won't generate the type predicate, the type condition. So it might make queries faster. That might be something to try on some queries where we know that the type is already defined by the index. It's implicit in the index, and you don't have to also filter in the query to do that. Because it's like a pure string comparison. So it has to check the full string for every value. So that's, and I'm not sure it's indexed actually. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe we should actually index the type. Maybe it's already done. The index grows with them. Add missing closing brace on the registration script. Okay, this is documentation, new contributors, all the StartBootstrap agency. I checked this project. I mean, the guy who creates it has been doing that for 10 years, and he keeps updating the themes. It's not a company where he sells more themes, but super nice to have all these super high quality themes available as an IT. So Tuan updated everything. And I'm telling you, in the next few days, there will be some SHA issues. Because whenever we update the themes, we have some SHA issues. Antoine, how confident are you with the SHA update? Maybe we should have a Cypress test.
I'm pretty confident.
I know you, well, I think I trust you because you've been there before, and you're like, I don't want to mess up again, to change, to forget one SHA or bad copy paste, like because you copy paste this one and this one is copy pasted from the one. So we should have maybe a functional test that will just go over at least the home page and check that there is no 404 with the downloaded assets. That will be easy. That will make sense, because it will happen like a script, a SHA, whatever. It happens so many times. I mean, it will happen again. I'm sure there's something in Cypress to that. StartBootstrap ComingSoon. Fix user ID verification. Oh, I did something in Autoroute Core. Isn't it crazy? It's been a year, something like that. I haven't committed something. So I fixed the code that ensures that the user ID is unique when we create a new user. There was a bug. I saw the bug and I fixed it. Super proud. So the idea is that there was an infinite loop because of SQL actually. So the code before was assigning the user ID to new user.userid, then do a query on the user index to check if there is someone with the same new user ID. But the issue is that when you call the query, it will flush any changes you made in an object that you already loaded or you created, something like that. So I assume it was just flushing the value, and then you will get Yes, well, it already exists, so you need a new value. So you generate a new value, and then you do the query, and it flushes the user. So it still exists, and there was an infinite loop. And so the solution is that you put the ID in a string, and you check the string, and then after only, you assign it to you see the bug?
Yeah, I see the bug. I woke up this morning and saw the bug.
Fuck you, fuck you.
But hey, it was my
And
bug
after-
you were fixing, so you know.
It's fixing the issue actually. So you don't have a new user ID, but at least it's not breaking. So crap. So it's even worse than that, because now everyone who has created users since yesterday should go in the database and assign new IDs. Like I fixed and broke it. So what's needed now is when you find the correct new ID, you need to assign it to new user ID. I didn't do that. But it works. You don't have a user ID, but that's okay. Oh boy. Okay, someone will fix it. Non-awaiting delegates invocation. It's super interesting that when you have a list of delegates, which are async delegates, then you can't call await on that. You have to use what's it called? Get invocation list and await each delegate. That's interesting.
So is that just for delegates? Because I did have a chance to look at that. I ran out of time today. JT had been talking about it. So when you have the list, you need to get an invocation list back out of them.
What's the question?
Is that just something for delegates particularly?
Yeah. I mean, that's for the things where you use, yes, delegates, and use the plus equal operator. Like if you have multicast delegate, that's what they call it. Then you can't just, yeah, so using async. Shell event, which is a delegate, so type, and in the code we do plus equal something. So you might have multiple listeners to that event. And then when you want to invoke that listener, then it has to be, it can't be an await of this delegate. It has to be a loop. Interesting. Might be issues that from issues, so that's good. Assign you. Oh, you think? Oh, dude. When was it? Oh, pretty close to what I did there. So whoever has used these commits, this one and this one, should, and they created users, they should go in the database and assign a new random value to. Thank you. So that how do you see that? You didn't. Who merged it? You merged it directly because you saw the issue. Did you?
I can't remember. I saw the issue.
Did you experience the issue, or try to understand the code and found the issue? Okay, good.
No, I was just I was curious to see what the bug was, because
yeah,
it had worked for me, and then I must have refactored to clean the code up a little bit and not retested. And then I looked at it and was like, hang on a second here.
and in the issue, what I said is that if only we had a functional test to create a user, we would have found that. So easy.
And then it didn't build, so I had customers do some testing, so I just did this to get a build out because the Cloudsmith build crashed.
What is that? It was failing?
No, the Cloudsmith build failed on the user ID, so I had to get a new.
Oh, yeah, I saw the document. Yeah, I saw the comment. Add comment to confirm markdown settings. Okay, and new version of the .NET Core SDK and HTML Core. Okay, good, all good. Demo time. Demo time. Dean, what do you want to talk about?
Done a little bit with users this last week, and some of the stuff we were kind of waiting on for the user ID.
This one first.
Gets a new feature.
This one.
So.
Oh, I'm not sharing. You are sharing. I want the custom thing first.
You want the custom thing first? Yeah, I think that's probably the better one. So a new feature which is reasonably similar to the custom site settings feature, but is custom user settings. What do they call it? Custom user settings. So what this allows you to do is define extra settings or metadata, profile data on your users that you'll start to see in the edit screen. So what we do is we go and make a content type, and we make a special content type called, let's call this profile. Let's call it user profile. Probably don't want any parts. We'll just add some fields. We disable all the creatables and we give it a stereotype of custom user settings. Save it there and we'll start adding some fields to it. So we could add a media field to it.
And can we add a media field and also define the center of your picture?
We probably could, yeah. We should try. It'll all depend on where we display it. So other stuff like the first name and kind of anything that you want to capture about a user. And if I go into the media field, I'll turn multiple off and we'll pick a center, shall we? So we'll save that and then we can go back to our users list and I can go in and you'll see how you've now got a new tab here which is called user profile, which is the display name of the custom content type that we made. And we can go in here and we can pick an image for your profile and put in a name or anything else you want. So
bio, taxonomies.
Sometimes it's like I said, you can put any field there you want. So if we had a look at the content types, there's a couple of rather kind of useful ones that you might find yourself using.
But when you say any field, I could also use any part, right?
Or any part, yeah.
So
you could have an HTML body part to give you.
Yeah, but I'm mentioning these examples to trigger ideas of what people usually want to do, and they don't know how to do it. And this is how to do it. Another example with Jint parts is, let's say you want to see the list of external user accounts you have. We don't want to store more data. The idea is that you could create a part that is just called external account part, that is just displaying something else from some other store. And then by just attaching that to a type that will have this stereotype, then we will have a tab at the top of user profiles that is called external accounts, and where we could list the Facebook, Google, Twitter, all the external accounts that are associated to the current user. And today there is no way to see that from your own account.
Absolutely. And one of the other things that I find myself storing on users is a little bit of logging information, which is not related to profiles on the front end, but as they go through a payment process to become a member of the site, we track how long they're a member for. They expire after a year. So that's also information that we're tracking on the user. So not particularly related to profiles, but meta information about where they come from and how long they're allowed to exist for. And
when I mentioned the bio, that's what I in mind also for the blog. So when you have multiple bloggers on the blog, and a blog post is associated to a user, like the owner, for instance, the author, or any other field you will want or will select, or multiple authors, we'll see later, then you might want to display with all the authors the thumbnail, like the picture, but also a little description of the author, what he does, and links and whatever. And that's where you will put it in the user profile.
And just so you're aware, you can, as Seb was saying, might have another type here. This might have a part potentially. So you can, always gets in the way there. If we go back to the user now, we see we've got another type that's available there. And one of the other things that you might find yourself doing, I didn't configure it, but you can also potentially use a content picker here. There's some advantages to linking to another content item from the user, because you then get all the versioning that you get with a content item, and it's a little bit more display orientated. So there's a lot of options, there's a lot of things you can do with it. We've already had the functionality to extend the user previously,
by code.
By code. And one of the things you'll still probably have to do by code, if we, I could probably show you.
And when you say by code, the idea is that here we are using the shape composition with the driver composition of shapes. So you could just implement a custom driver of iUser, and then it will be plugged in the content section here. So that still works. And we do it for stuff that is mandatory, but now you can also create a type with a stereotype and assign it to the, and that's it.
Yeah, and it's more convenient because it's difficult to do a media picker in code, but reasonably easy to do it.
And you experienced it because you implemented the PR, and this is where you literally understand the how composable Autoroute is, and how you can reuse every pieces that you made around it. And just by a few lines of code, you have the full editor extensibility of settings, tabs, fields, crazy.
Yeah, and this is
storage, everything.
3 files, I think. This has only got 3 files to drive it. It's, well, everything else is there in the framework.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was the first feature. What we probably need to look at as well at some point on this one is a permission arrangement for it. At the moment, the only kind of permission that we have is whether or not you can manage the entire user, or sorry, the entire list of users, so everybody on your site.
So let's say I have a profile, and I want to relate to other users. What would I do?
So you want to
link a user to another one.
Then you would use another feature that I was also going to demo. Should we do that one now too? So we wanted to give a few options on the whole users thing, and one of the other options that I've added is a user picker field. So if we were to go into the blog post here and add a field here called authors, and you might remember Antoine showed it, or you showed us the thing Antoine had done with encode docs, where it's now listing everyone that's edited a document rather than just one particular person. So you could add a user picker field, and when you go in there, you can set it up as to what roles the user must be in. In this case, we'll just say all the roles and allow multiples. And then we can go into the blog and edit a blog post and select a couple of authors. I think we can even sort them as well, and I'll go at the top because I'm the most important. And that's now available. If we look at the post, I think I added the code in. Yeah. The two authors.
So simple display with just the display text. The username, whatever.
Username, yeah. Simple view, it does have to get all the users, or it does have to get the user entity. So there's, you can override the view
That's perfect.
And do what you want to. But say, for example, to answer your question before, of how could we link a couple of users?
And this is also where you would put the bio of the user, because you have access to the user ID. So you can load it, load the bio, display it with the blog post and feature.
But we could also do the same thing back on our custom user settings, and we could say that Dean is linked to the admin user.
You say related?
Related, yeah. Which kind of makes sense because, most of the time on this particular site, I will be the admin, but I probably want to publish blog posts under my name, not the admin's name.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a lot of work, but at the same time, knowing how proficient you are with Autoroute, I'm sure it's straightforward. There is no surprise, or it was not that hard to implement, right? For you, I mean.
No, I mean, it's probably the big, I meant to do this ages ago, but the thing blocking it was actually the user ID PR that we already talked about. Because if you're going to do a user picker, you need an ID field.
Well, it could have been the username, but
yeah, but the username can change, and then it's lost, and then the feature isn't right, and people will report bugs, and Jasmine will complain. So now that we've got the user ID, we can do some of the stuff with users that we wanted to.
When you type to search, there is a custom API to do that.
Yeah, it retrieves 50. It's very simple because it's
just the display text,
just the username, and also whether they're enabled or not. So we have the ability to say I leave, and I've and we get a new author. You still want to keep a record of that user because I was there, so I do show up as not enabled in the list.
It's perfect.
And normally you'd probably restrict the roles that you can select, because something like this, you wouldn't want any of the administrators being selected as being an author. You might restrict it to the editors, for example, or the contributors.
Do we index this property, not enabled?
Yes, I think we do.
We should definitely. I hope we do, because when we query the users, that makes sense to not to say I don't want the disabled users. There could be issues with that. You could expose users that you don't want people to see. Yeah,
I'm sure it's in the the index, and we index this field as well. So this is in the SQL indexing.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah. So
when you index the field, you index the ID and the username.
I think I just index the ID.
So you can do a search on the username.
The search on the username, you'd probably do a join on the user index table, which has it.
I am thinking Lucene.
Lucene has.
Well, if you don't provide the name, then you don't. But that might be interesting.
Yeah, we could possibly provide the name to Lucene. Do we do a Lucene users index? Because you would crop.
Oh, I see what you mean. No, but here it's a field. It's a content field. So yeah, it's a field. So it would ask for any indexed value for a content field or for a part. And you can say, oh, because it's an author or user picker, I will provide the user ID and then the username.
Yeah, no.
So people can search by user ID and stored, and search by username and stored.
It makes sense.
Non-tokenized stored.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot. That's beautiful.
That's right. Nice to be able to do these ones.
It's great. I mean, people will be so happy with that. There were some questions. Questions from David on the issue, and he commented on that. So there is no, in your PR, there is no thing for the front end. So it's just something for storing and editing user profiles. It doesn't prevent you from creating your custom profile page using a Razor page or a controller or your custom module with a URL route that will point to the current user or to a named user, whatever you want, and then display whatever information you want to show. Okay, just what you want to show. Because if we had to do something automatic, I mean, how would we know what to display and how to display it? Because whatever we do, you will want to be able to change how it's displayed and what is displayed. So that's too complex. So we should not enter this game, and just maybe someone will do a module for that, like a profile module that will create the page, and you can define on the front end how to render things. But I prefer people to create their own controller and render whatever they want. So that's
yes, I generally agree with that. And I think it's important for people to do this themselves, because partly they need to understand the security implications of what they're choosing to display, and so actively make their own choices.
What we could do is at least the route and template, so that people know what shape to replace. And they don't have to provide the route. They just enable the feature and they did the shape template just to provide something, and they don't have to code anything. They could go in the admin and change the shape template. The default shape template should be super simple by saying this is a username or whatever. Okay, and the feature might say I only allow the current user to see their profile, or you can also have the route that goes to any profile. That would be the simple feature for that, and mostly sufficient for anyone. That would be super easy. Then another comment I made in the PR is that on the top right where you see admin, maybe we would need a link in the dropdown to go to your profile. Because when you're, if maybe tomorrow we have stuff from the current user there, like settings and preferences and things like this, that it might be easier for the current user to go to their profile from there. That might be a nice thing to do.
Yeah, I think that one's probably important, but requires some permissions. Because one of the problems with users, the permissions is fine, we just need to add them. The problem with users at the moment is you can either see them or you can't. So, if I am just an editor or a contributor, I can't go in and change my password, change my name, change my email address, anything about my details. So some permissions, and then super easy to have a page up here to just edit yourself.
Yep. Manage own user settings, permission, something like that.
Yeah,
that would be hard to handle that at the field level or the type level of the settings. Maybe that should be at the type level, at the settings level. Like you can say this one needs to have these roles to be able to edit their own profile, something like that.
I figured we'd probably need to make it a little bit granular so that the user type, obviously they can't edit their own roles. So the granularity would be on the user type and any other section type.
So I'm saying the custom type settings on the type. Yep, and that's something to do that is doable with custom type settings. So we could provide an edit if we detect that it's custom user settings, then we could add the section for the role management, and then it will be stored with the type, and then we can drive the sections here. That will work.
So I think that should be quite doable and a useful thing to have.
Easy. Okay, it's recorded. I won't forget. Well, you won't forget. I will forget, but it's recorded, so people who watch the meeting will remember what we said. Beautiful. Thanks a lot. Jean-Philippe, do you want to take over? I'm sure in 5 minutes you're done.
Yeah, it should not be long.
Thanks, JP, for the time.
Yeah, thank you. That's an awesome feature I've been wanting to do for a while. Screen.
Why didn't you do it then?
I was not too sure how, and seeing how easy he made it look.
Jean-Philippe promised me that by the end of the week we'll get the field localization.
The what?
Fields localization. Neutral fields and field.
Yeah.
Someday. Someday. Whenever you can. Don't worry.
Okay. So yeah. So first thing, CMS clean. So I'm gonna just clean the app data so that I can run the full suite. So there's a bunch of NPM scripts that you can use to host, clean, build, test clean, test, build clean, even open Cypress. So
honestly, when I run the test, I would expect it to clean the thing before, because if I can't run it twice and I need to clean everything before, that's weird.
Yeah, this is the one that does that.
Okay.
I want it to be a bit more complex to write, because if you write it by accident, it's going to delete all your sites. And if you didn't back up the data you had locally, you could, anyway, could be in trouble. But yeah, so now I already built OC earlier, so it's pretty fast, but it's hosted in production mode. And this, you notice that it's using a script, a test runner that you wrote initially, and that I adapted and put into this Cypress commands folder, which is published on NPM. So you can actually.
What too quick? I didn't see what you did with the command line. Where were you and what did you type?
Oh, I'm in the Orchard folder.
Functional
test.
Okay, test functional. So you go there and you type npm run cms host.
Yep. And that's going to go and run, whoops, not this one, package.json, this command, which is actually running the old Orchard script that you had written. It's a bunch of helpers basically for test runner. So it's like building Orchard. It's using Node to spawn a process, right?
Oh, that was hard. Oh my god.
You remember building this, and I just adapted.
It was a pain to figure out how to run something with NPM.
Yeah. So
oh.
Now this is done, and it's part of the Cypress command. So this package is actually available on NPM, so you can get it in your own project. So if you see my StatCan Orchard Core solution, all I did was I installed this package from NPM, and I have this test runner in there. So you don't have to write anything custom in your custom solutions for it, and you can just start using whatever commands and the test runner that we have here. So I host the CMS. So I'm running Orchard, and then this one is npm run CMS Cypress. So this will launch the Cypress test runner, which looks like this. And then you can run all the tests, or you can just pick one. What's nice is that since these ones generate a GUID for the site name and the URL prefix, you can rerun them over and over again. So I use this a lot when building migration. So I have an example I have here is in our StatCan test. So I was testing a contact form tenant or a team, and the team was actually doing a bunch of migration. So instead of having to recreate a bunch of tenants every time, you just do a space save, and it's going to create a tenant for you, rerun your migration, everything. So if I just click run all spec, you can visually see what it's doing in the browser. And you see now it's set up the site, and it's going into the general settings to set the page size. Then it's creating the agency tenant and validating that some text is there. Yep. And Cypress actually verifies the JavaScript too. So if there's any JavaScript error on an admin page that you visit or a front-end page, it will show you. And another cool thing.
And if there is a 404?
it's
like
going to
if
fail.
Antoine made a mistake with the shawant.
I'm pretty sure it's just going to pick it up.
Thank you. So Antoine, can you do a favor and just create a PR that will mess up with the shawant, just to be sure that he's not bullshitting us with that?
I'm guessing. I have to double check. But yeah, see, you can go back in time too, and you can see what it was doing. And like, okay, it was getting the username and typing admin in there. So you can go back and see what it's doing. Yep.
And I mentioned that earlier also, but this tooling can let you also navigate and type stuff, and it will record what you do, so it can replay it. So if you want to build a unit test, a functional test, you could do it yourself and record what you just did.
I think so. Yeah, so see, I reran the agency test, and it just generated a tenant with a new GUID. So if I run it again, it's generating a new GUID every time. So
how many GUIDs do we have?
I'm using
how many
function.
GUIDs? No, I'm saying how many GUIDs do we have?
Infinite. No, I don't know.
Infinite?
You can have 100 tenants before it starts being a problem.
Why? Why is it a problem?
Because if you go on, so let's go on this one. If you go on the tenants page, so
because there is no paging.
Yeah, that's it. So
but just don't go on the page.
When you click, I click the setup button. I guess, do I have to come on this page? Yeah, I could modify the test so that it doesn't. But yeah, so that's why I was doing.
Okay, or we could just page it. That's what you say. It's an issue.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Because I have a script that creates thousands of tenants without going there. It's just creating a tenants, and then I can just go on the page and load them. Because how do I create tenants with my script? I just create the file system stuff. So I just create a default tenant, and I copy the folder and just adapt the site settings and the JSON file just to create new tenants and new things inside. So I don't have to use the UI. Super useful when you want to try to test the density.
Interesting. But yeah, so that's it, and that's pretty much all I wanted to show. The package is on npm. So if you want to use it on your own site. Yeah, on your own project.
You mentioned multiple times StatCan, and for those who don't know what it is, it's not something in Autoroute. It's Jean-Philippe's company. Well,
I work at the
employer Statistics of Canada.
Yeah. So we start using Autoroute for some of our internal sites and contributing at the same time. Yeah, and it's all open source on GitHub.
You are taking more than you give, so it's just a steal right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so you can use this on.
That's great. Site. Thank you very much. Perfect.
Thanks.
It's awesome. So many great demos today. Oh, okay, I think that's it. We're done with today's meeting. Share my screen just.
Yeah, and I updated the Net5 branch. And actually, the Cypress tests are not launching.
Oh no. It's probably yeah, I think I know why. The test runner is probably targeting 3.1.
Yeah, because the scripts that we do to run an app, I think they have the folder, but you changed some things like this. So maybe we also need to change the Cypress files.
Yeah, the test runner JS, you just target Netcore app 5.
So this is VS Code. This is VS Code.
Okay, I merged it and I forgot to replace it.
So in Cypress, there are some files that will point to the DLL to start it automatically. So that might be the reason.
Yeah.
Functional.
Cypress command, source, test runner, and search for 3.1.
Boom.
Yeah.
That's the reason.
And I also noticed that the Travis CI is taking a long time.
Yes, because we should not use Travis CI anymore. Travis CI since last week, 2nd of November, has imposed quotas for every open source project of something like 1,000 hours, something like that. But I'm sure we reach whatever quota they set in a few days, in a few weeks, because with all the PRs, all the merges, and it's taking some time to run all the tests and functional tests and build, and then generating Docker images, then we do it on Mac and Linux, we are out of quota. So forget about Travis CI. We just need to migrate to something else, either Abbey or Linux or GitHub Actions. So we could even disable it if it doesn't work, because it's blocking lots of PR for a long time. And we will soon not be able to run anything anymore because we'll go into the quota limit. So it's a dead end. That's it. They got acquired a few years ago, and they changed the way they do that. They do with open source, so it's not viable for us anymore. The project is too big for Travis CI free version. It's taking too much time, and that makes sense. I mean, they can't pay the CPU for nothing for everyone. Explains. Good. So sad we won't be able to talk about it later. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you on Thursday or next week. Have a good day. Bye-bye.